How we doing? How we doing? This is Destination Denver, Colorado, and a little fun one today. Do not move to Denver, Colorado unless you can handle these 10 things, and we're counting them down starting right now. All right, this is Destination Denver, Colorado. I'm your host, Jimmy Evertson. Listen, if you're interested in learning all the ins and outs, pros and cons to moving to or around Denver, Colorado, then this is a channel for you. So that subscribe button and notification icon popping up on your screen, make sure you click on that as I'm dropping new videos for you each and every week. And listen, as much as I try to be a little creative here on camera, I'm also a licensed mortgage broker covering the entire state of Colorado and team with some of Denver's most talented realtors, and we're helping people move here each and every day. So that number and email popping up on your screen, know that I'm always the person answering your phone calls, answering your texts, answering your emails. There, winning if you need me. Now that we're done with that fun-filled stuff, let's get to what we're here for, and that is don't move to Denver, Colorado if you can't handle these 10 things. All right, so first I gotta tell you, I'm pretty excited about this list because it is a combination of my thoughts, friends and colleagues' thoughts, past clients' thoughts, and ChatGPT. And somehow or other, we found 10 items that everybody pretty much agreed on. So diving into it, number one, Denver is not called the Mile High City for nothing. We are all of 5,280 feet above sea level. And many of the communities that you might choose to live in around Denver will be higher than that elevation. And so when we talk about elevation, and if you have not experienced it before, when we talk about altitude sickness, when we talk about how much water you need to intake, wearing sunscreen because of the way the sun will interact with your body, we're not kidding. Every time someone comes into the state, and whether they are in shape or not, we go for a hike and they're bent over, sucking wind, shortness of breath. People become dehydrated rapidly. Thus, we talk about the water. So when you think about the elevation of Denver and when you hear that Mile High City, do not take it for granted that your body will adapt to it quickly. For some people, it takes a long period of time. And again, we talk about water, sunscreen, chapstick, all that stuff. We're not kidding. We've experienced it. I mean, my hands are cracking right now. And tied into that elevation and dryness is point number two, and that is weather. And yes, we're going to talk about how great Denver is for its 300 days of sunshine, which are honestly closer to about 245, 250 when you talk about just actual beautiful days of sunshine. But we get sun, we get some great weather, but our weather is also unpredictable as can be. You will have the quintessential days that start really cold in the morning, and then by the afternoon you're sweating because you put on too many layers. You'll have days, we've seen it this winter, where it starts sunny, it appears like it's going to be a really nice day, and then all of a sudden this cold front comes in and you go from gorgeous blue skies and sunshine, and it's snowing in the afternoon and I'm shoveling my driveway. And you have that in between. Now, Denver is predictable for one thing. Rain is something that when we get rain, we can usually foresee that coming. But when it comes to really hot, shifting to really cold, or vice versa, sometimes we have no idea whatsoever. And growing up here, I've been listening to weather people for going on 45 years now. And I mean, they're 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10 on the bump. And listen, as someone who has lived roughly 33 of their 45 years in or around Denver, Colorado, I've watched meteorologists try to predict what is going to happen in this state for decades. And I don't know if they're any more accurate now than when I was in elementary school. Number three, and you're gonna hear this a ton from locals. You're gonna hear this a ton from people who have lived here for a while, but traffic continues to be an increasing problem for Denver. Now, if you grew up around Denver at all, you were probably used to the fact that during rush hour and right around the city, obviously things could get a little backed up. I don't know of a city on the planet that doesn't get that way. But as Denver's population has grown and as the suburbs surrounding Denver has grown, that traffic has grown increasingly annoying. Now to me, having lived in some bigger cities before, I don't see Denver's traffic being tragic. It's very rare that it's just stop altogether. It's usually a slowdown, but that slowdown continues to get worse. And as I've discussed in other videos, Denver does not necessarily have the infrastructure to expand in certain areas. So some of our major highways, some of our public transportation systems are going to be difficult, if not impossible, to expand. Now, one thing I would add to that, while our light rail system in some ways is limited, it is extremely helpful for people who live near those light rail stations, or at least within earshot of it. And if you're a remote worker, you can ignore everything I'm saying about traffic because you can just dodge that as much as possible. Number 4, and I know you're stunned by all of these so far, but it's cost of living. Denver has become a pretty expensive place to live. If you asked that question 10 years ago, you're probably saying Denver's mid-level. 5 years ago, we started to see symptoms, and now Denver is full-fledged a pricey place to live, especially when it comes to housing. When we compare Denver to other cities, other popular destinations right now, Nashville, Austin, Charlotte, getting a lot of information from Charlotte right now. Denver's cost of living is typically a little more expensive than those places. However, our housing costs are increasing rapidly. So unless you are moving from a Los Angeles, a Seattle, a Washington, D.C., a San Francisco, chances are Denver's housing may very well be more expensive than what you are used to right now. And that includes whether you are looking to buy or looking to rent. Number 5, and trust me when I say this, when we talk about Denver being so outdoorsy, hiking, biking, camping, skiing, snowboarding, all of those things, if you are anti-outdoorsy, if that is not your vibe, there is at least a decent chance that Colorado might not be the best fit for you. Now, that's not to say that you have to spend all of your time hiking trails, but because of the fact that Denver has the weather it does and has the outdoor amenities that it does, with so many of these places within an hour to 2 hours tops getting to, a lot of the people you're going to meet, a lot of the crowds you're going to be around are going to be into those scenes. Now, does that mean you need to be the end-all be-all outdoors person where you just have to hike every weekend, go skiing every other weekend in the winter? No. But I would say that if you're into at least one of those things, if you can go on the occasional hike, if you don't mind going on the occasional ski run if you're into that, as long as you like a taste of outdoors, you're going to be okay. But if you were like, nature, gross, you might have a challenging time fitting in a lot of the circles of Colorado. And I say that as a guy that when I first moved back here, 12, 13 years ago, I was not the most outdoorsy guy, and I don't even get it. I wasn't the most popular either. Number 6, this could be a like it or love it, but the marijuana culture here in Colorado. Now, marijuana became legal in Colorado in 2012. I think the worst that we saw of that legalization decision, we saw several years ago. Those problems still exist, okay? There is a lot of claim that our homeless increase here is based on marijuana. There are still times where, if you do not like the smell of marijuana, you're gonna catch a whiff of it, whether it's sporting events, concerts, walking through a park. Again, is that a huge deal? I mean, to me, not so much. To a lot of the people I talk to, not so much. But I do occasionally run into people who cannot stand it. So if that is something that truly bothers you, it is something to consider. Then again, if marijuana is not your thing, you can make up for it with all the breweries we have here. Number 7, and I hit on it early, but I got to reiterate because everyone wanted to make sure that this was emphasized, is that when we talk about the dry climate, when we talk about the fact that Denver doesn't have a lot of water, we're not kidding. Your skin will dry out quickly. You will need to stay hydrated. A lot of times people will get headaches early on moving here, especially in the hotter weather. The lack of humidity and the lack of water does make our hot not as hot and our cold not as cold, but your body reacts to it. And I can tell you from personal experience that my hands and my feet will go from like perfectly okay, nothing wrong, to all of a sudden I have fingers splitting, my heel cracking. So something that happens quickly, the dryness, the lack of water in Denver is something you definitely want to pay attention to. And I know plenty of people coming from the coast, and I've experienced this, where they say, you know what, I'm not gonna miss water, I'm gonna be okay. They're getting away from the coast or they're getting away from areas that have just massive lakes. They get out to Denver and they see what we have for water, and that is reservoirs that are ponds for many people who have seen, massive bodies of water. They come here, they don't love it, and they want to move off. The mountains can make up to that for a point, but we can't pretend like we have water. Number 8, and honestly, I debated this with a lot of my clients and a lot of people that I've had move here and some of my friends. So as far as a national average, healthcare in Denver is more expensive than the national average. It was one of the concerns raised. However, on average, Denver and Colorado for that matter, but Denver in the heart, is a pretty healthy city. We talk about how outdoorsy we are. We talk about the fitness and health aspects of Denver. A lot of the restaurants you're going to see are health conscious. So our healthcare may be, as far as national average, more expensive, but the need for that healthcare, if that makes sense, and again, this is based on conversations with colleagues and clients, that need for healthcare hasn't been as extensive because of the healthier lifestyles that the average Denver person lives. I also found it interesting that in the research I did, whereas our housing and like our nights out cost of living was higher than most, our healthcare, based on the information I saw, was lower. Something to take consideration of, and certainly something to do some deep diving research on prior to making your move here. Number 9, and that is a lack of diversity. Now, do I think that Denver is getting better in that sense? I do. You have a big melting pot effect. You have a lot of people moving here. And Denver has long had predominantly Caucasian population with a substantial Latino population. Outside of those two, the diversity outside of that is slowly but surely increasing, but for the most part, that is one of the knocks that Denver receives, is the lack of diversity. And with those diversity questions, a big matter of discussion in Denver is, are we seeing modernization or are we seeing gentrification within a lot of these communities and based on their history? So something you're certainly going to want to keep your eye on in that conversation in Denver. And number 10, growth and development. So while Denver's population definitely exploded in the 2010s, it has settled in a bit at the current moment, but you're still seeing a massive amount of developments. If you come through Denver, you're going to see a lot of cranes, you're going to see a lot of projects, and you're going to see a lot of plans for different communities, whether it's apartment buildings, condos, new home communities, restaurants, you name it. Something is being built in Denver. And while that can be very exciting for some people, it can be extremely exhausting for others. I do think that when we talk about the future of Denver, people moving here or people who have come here recently tend to be more excited by these changes than Denver locals who have been here for a long period of time. I think there is a sense of, and I've joked about it in other videos, Denver natives love telling you they're Denver natives, but I do feel that there is a sense from a lot of natives, older, my age and such, who aren't as thrilled by all of this progress. They kind of miss that old Denver and they're like, oh, let's slow the roll here. But for the folks that have moved here in more recent years and the people thinking about moving here, that growth is very exciting. And I couldn't help but sneak in a little bonus, and that is number 11. We're going to do that. And tying on to that growth and development, and this is something that my colleagues wanted me to make sure I talked about, we're seeing it here in Denver. As strong as our economy has been, and as many industries as our economy is based on, you are seeing a competition among these high-paying jobs that a lot of people are going for. Certainly with Denver's cost of living, you get an influx of people moving here, and you get an influx of people here who are looking and pursuing higher paying jobs, and those jobs tend to be, as you could assume, extremely competitive. So that job market specifically can be a little more constrained than what it might have been in previous years. Probably not the most concise information I've ever presented, but a lot clearer than how it was presented to me, I assure you. But hey, while I can give you 10, maybe call it 10 and a half reasons why you might not want to move to Denver, Lord knows I can give you plenty of reasons why you should. So that's a great time to hit me up. The number, the email popping up on your screen. Know that I'm always the person. Answer your phone calls, answer your texts, answer your emails. There when and if you need me. This is Destination Denver, Colorado. I am your host, Jimmy Everts. That was do not move to Denver, Colorado unless you can handle these 10 things. Until I see you next time, peace.